And I'm thinking, I'm sitting up in here, a police officer in the emergency room, a victim of domestic violence. And I'm saying to myself, have you had enough? Like, you don't deserve this. You work really hard and you take care of your granddad, and on and on and on. And so the responding officers finally come in to take the report. And I tell them I'm a police officer. I tell them the whole story, that I didn't have my weapon. And this is what happens. And I want to press charges and go forward with everything within my power. So the doctor comes in after taking x-rays and says you have a fractured tailbone and there's nothing really that they can do to help it heal. There's no cast, there's no brace, it's nothing. You just have to wait for it to heal on its own. So my friend shows up and I go to her house and Tony is calling me like crazy. And he's been drinking, which makes it worse. And I'm not answering, I'm not responding. So I escalate the situation and get into the courts and ask for him to be removed and ask for an order of protection to be put in place. And sometime after this incident, I get a call from his mother, and she says to me, "You think you're the only one with a gun? Well, he has a gun too." And she says, "You think you're going to take that house from him and take his truck and this, that, and the other?" And just goes on and on and on. And I said to her, "When I want your opinion, I'll ask for it. And since I haven't asked for it, you need to keep your opinion to yourself and don't ever call me again." And hung up. So I'm like, oh, he has a gun. Now, shortly after he gets evicted, or after the incident, he checks himself into a mental ward in a hospital immediately. We haven't even gotten a court date yet. So he's on this in the mental wing of this ward, and they put him on medication. So they've ran tests, they've diagnosed that he doesn't have all the neurons to process stress and that he's flipping out of control and that he needs to be medicated. So I go visit him and I'm noticing that his mother is going every day, every day, every day, every day. And finally, to him, in his mind, this is the attention that he's always wanted from his mom and never got. And the medication was really spacing him out. He was just not himself and it's shaking and trembling. And um, I wasn't aware when he got released. But I found out later that one of the day he got released, one of his friends went and picked him up and took him to buy a gun. And that's how he got the gun. And the background checks weren't were quicker than the hospital reporting on his record that he had been admitted into the mental ward in the hospital. So he was able to get clearance to get the gun. And so his mother, it turns out, had been going and telling him this whole time he was on this ward that there's nothing wrong with you. It's her. You need to get rid of her. She's the one causing all this. You didn't have all these problems before you got with her. And convinces him of this. So when the sheriffs came and put him out, I got notified and I was able to go back to my home and I changed the locks. And a few days later, I'm driving up. We lived on a cul-de-sac. So if you drive in one end of the cul-de-sac, you can see my house. And I see him sitting in his truck in front of my house. Now I have my guns on me and I'm just ready. So I'm driving, and the spirit tells me clear as day, keep driving, drive to the police station. I don't know where he had been staying or who he had been staying with. I hadn't talked to him or anything. So I go to the police station. He starts to follow me out of the cul-de-sac, and I just turn off into the police station, and he keeps going. So I go into the police station. I identify myself. Hi, I'm Officer Huff. I have an order of protection against my husband. He's out in front of our residence, and I need a squad. So they start tracking my time from the time that I got into the parking lot and went into the police station. That's when they started tracking my time. So she says, I'm going to have a squad come and meet you. Go and sit in front of the house. Don't go in. And I'll have him, come in with you, and he'll come and meet you. So the officer pulls up in the squad. We roll down the window. He rolls down his window, and he's like, how you doing? I said, I'm fine. He says, everything okay? I said, yes. He left, and he asked me, do you have your weapon? I said, yes, I have both of them. And he says, okay, everything looks all clear. Call us if you need us. So I go in, and I'm thinking he's there to get clothes, because when the sheriff comes, they give you 5 or 10 minutes to gather what you can, and you got to go, or else you going in handcuffs. So I call my aunt, who was with the state police at the time, and I tell her what's going on. So as soon as the squad pulls off, the Bolingbrook squad pulls off, she pulls up. So someone is with me throughout this whole time frame. So we go in the house, I'm in the house, I'm packing, and I'm telling her what's going on, and I'm just thinking he's there because he wants to get his things. So I'm packing his things so I can drop him off at his mother's house, and everything will be okay. And my phone rings, and it's my pastor from Broadview. And he says, what are you doing? I said, Tony was just here, and I'm packing it. I guess he was here because he wanted to get some things. So I'm packing his things. And he says, stop what you're doing and come to the church right now. I said, what do you mean? I'll come when I pack. He says, no, I need you to come right now. Stop what you're doing and come. So I'm telling my aunt, like, this is the pastor, and he wants me to come right now. So we get in the car, and we're on the tollway, and we're headed to the church. And I get another phone call, one of Tony's friends, and he's like, what you doing? I say, I'm driving. Pastor Hobson just called and told me to stop what I'm doing and come to the church. So I'm on my way to see him at the church. He's like, so you don't know? I said, no, what? He said, Tony's dead. And he was with some other friends, and I guess they were at the hospital, and his other friend was snatched the phone from him and said, man, she just told you she was driving. You don't tell her no shit like that, and she driving. What's wrong with you? So his other friend gets on the phone and says, Yorley, I'm sorry, there's been an accident, you need to come to the hospital. I said, well, I'm going to go to the church first, and then I guess I'll be there. So I'm talking to my aunt. We get to the church, and it's really weird because there's always foot traffic for some reason, no matter what's going on or what time of day. Anytime that I've been there, there's always people walking and traffic, but there's no movement when I walk in. And so we go to Pastor Hops's office, and he's like, come in and sit down. And he's like, Tony killed himself today. And I said, what? What do you mean? What are you talking about? He was just at the house. He said, yeah, I know. The hotel that we put him up at, the maid found him in his truck, slumped over the steering wheel. And she called the ambulance and called the police, and they came and pulled him out, and he shot himself in the chest, and he's dead. And he says, Deacon Bond already went to identify the body. So I wanted you to come here so I could tell you. And I was just thinking, what is going on? So I started crying, and they're consoling me, and I said, I want to see him. I said, do you have a picture of him? And for some reason, I guess Deacon Bond brought back a picture and he showed me the picture. And my aunt was trying to take it out of my hand, and I was like, I wouldn't let it go. And my mind just went blank. And so we never made it to the hospital. We went back home and it became a whole nother ordeal. Tony's mother had kept him from his natural father's family since he was little. And I never met any of them. I met a half brother that Tony had, and we spent some time together, and they seemed to enjoy each other. And whenever we could get together, we would. And that night, Tony's mother and stepfather went to the hospital and told the hospital that they were his only next of kin, and they gave Tony's mom and stepdad his belongings. Now, the truck had been impounded because an investigation had to happen. It was a death investigation. And the Cook County Sheriff's Police was the agency. My agency that I worked for was the agency that took the weapon and ran ballistics on the weapon and, went through the whole death investigation. Now, I had done work for Hillside, drug intervention work for Hillside, and I knew the chief directly, and they knew who I was. And the his parents, his mom and his stepdad, after they went to the hospital, he had on some $300 brand new Jordans that at that time, and they took all of his bloody clothes and his shoes. So they go to the Hillside Police Department and they try to take his truck. So they go there and they say that we're the next of kin. They tried that first, but the detectives know me. They know because I've done drug intervention. They know we're married. They know this is my husband. And they're like, no, you're not the next of kin. He has a wife. What are you talking about? And so then they began to tell the detective that I was having an affair with JD and I was pregnant, and that JD and myself killed him, and that they're concerned that they're going to, that we were going to have the body cremated and destroy the evidence. And so this began to be the gossip of all the towns. All of these are small west suburban towns, and they again know Tony because he was a basketball star. The police officers and detectives and chiefs know me because I'm in those towns working doing drug intervention for them. So word spreads like wildfire. And now I am under investigation from my department because of these rumors. And it's already a hostile, discriminatory, volatile environment. So this just adds, so they think, in their favor to my troubles. So my superior, which was Fred Guerra, comes back and spreads the word that I'm negligent, that my husband has killed himself with my weapon, my duty weapon. But they already know because they've ran the ballistics that it's not. And I have my weapons in my possession. So now they try to again run down on me and with this fictitious nonsense. Not only that, Tony's mother talks to his natural father's family, which was a known family of gangbangers and drug dealers and prostitutes, and they're just like the biggest, baddest on the west side. You never want to tangle with them. So Sean calls me and he says to me that, Yorley, I know I need to see your face and tell me that you didn't do this. I know that you love my brother, but my family is getting ready, all kind of weapons, and they getting ready to come right up on you. And I just need to see your face to tell me that this isn't true. What Laverne is saying, what Tony's mother is saying, isn't true. And so I say to him that you let your family know that I live on a cul-de-sac and I will pick their asses off at the corner before they even get to my house. So let's be clear about who's coming to get who and what is going to happen. So now, if you want to come, you're more than welcome to come. But I suggest that you let them know that you got to bring ass to get ass. And this ass ain't going nowhere. So we meet, and he's telling me this story that Tony's mother has told them, that I'm pregnant by my partner. I was having an affair with him and we killed him and we're going to cremate the body to cover up the evidence. And I said, well, that's interesting because really, in fact, they probably are telling you all this so you will come after me, so I won't be able to tell you the truth. So the truth is that Laverne, Tony's mother, and his stepfather was raping him, and she did nothing. She knew about it. He, at 16, was homeless because his dad, they both were on drugs. His stepdad beat him bloody in public, saying that he stole this gold chain, that he had proof that he purchased and bought, and showed it to her. And her response to him was, if you don't like the way that he runs his household, you can leave. So he's homeless at 16. And none of this was ever addressed. And so he was in pain. And so his mouth drops. And as soon as he shakes himself and gets himself together, like, are you serious? Then he gets on the phone and calls the troops and say, listen, y'all stand down. This is really what's going down. And this is what really happened. And now they want to kill Tony's mother and the stepfather. So we're going through a series of meetings trying to get this funeral together. And during this whole time, I've got people calling me that I don't even know, asking me, why did I kill him, or what happened, and why did I do this? And I'm just like, what are you calling me for? I don't even know who you are. Call the people who's telling you this crap. So tension was very, extremely high. And I am so glad that I had my ecosystem. My circle at the time was really that you need to stay in prayer, and retaliation is not going to be an option for you. And it's not going to be good because I'm the type of person, being bullied young, I was never a responder. I would let it build up and build up and build up like a pressure cooker. And then when I unleashed, it was tragic. And going through some more healing through this process was definitely needed. But I'm so glad that I had the people around me that I did to help me understand that was a distraction. That wasn't something that I needed to entertain. So we meet at the church, and why the pastor had his mother and stepfather and sister there, I couldn't tell you. So we're trying to put the obituary together, and the pastor asked for a picture, and they throw out a picture of Tony back in the 70s with an afro, with a velvet suit on, with collar wings that are over his shoulders. This is the most recent picture that they have of him. And so I look at the picture and I throw it back at him like, no, we're not using it. And then they go on with the taunts. They called Pastor Hobson and demanded that I be kicked out of the church because I killed him. Just, it was nonstop, every day, all day. And I called Pastor Hobson, and that day I told him, don't you ever, ever have them in my presence again. If we're going to get through this, you don't even understand uh, the things that they're instigating and saying and subjecting me to. So it's best, if you want this church to stand, that you keep us separated as far from me as possible. We get the obituary done, and I didn't see them again at the church. I go to view the body at the funeral home, and I have to take a suit and take his. We got married in African garb, so I took the African garb that we got married in, so he would be buried in that. And I'm at the funeral home, and his mom and dad, I see them walking around to come in, and I told the funeral director, I said, it's probably going to be in your best interest if you tell them to go home, because if you let them in here, you probably not going to be able to do business for a while, because I'm going to tear this motherfucker up. So go and send them home, and I mean right now. So he runs out, catches them at the door, and tells them they can't come in. Like, go home. There's no need for you to be here. And we are set for the funeral. Because I'm a police officer, my uncle officiated the services, and we had a St. Jude's funeral, which means that he had a funeral as if he was a police officer. There was the guard there, the officer saluting the casket. Because of the tension, there were undercover FBI agents and Secret Service all in the audience, and it was about to go down. We are riding in the funeral, and every last person in my car is strapped, and we're ready. We get to the funeral, and they seat us first, and then they bring in Tony's mother and stepfather, and everyone that was with them was walking past with the dirty looks and the mean mugging, and I'm just sitting there like, make a move, make one move. We get into the service, and I didn't realize that they read these statements, and whoever is up there that's reading these statements, Tony was so humble, like a butterfly, and he was so nice and kind. He wouldn't hurt anybody. So I motioned for the usher, come quick. And I said, go up there. The resolutions is what it's called. I said, go up there and please stop her. No more resolutions are going to be read today. Don't read anything else. That's enough. Let's get this over with. So she goes up and lets her know that we're gonna cut that short and move on to the next thing. Now the church is packed. When we got married, it was only a handful of people there, so I have no clue on who all of these people are. But like I said, he was well known and well loved in these towns, and people just came out from everywhere, um, showing their support and love. Um, and there were people there too with ulterior motives and other agendas as well. So we get through the funeral, we go to the burial. I had never seen or experienced anything like this. We're driving up in the car, and there are people in the trees Literally, they're in the trees. They're sitting in the trees. I didn't understand what that was about. And we didn't get out right away. They pulled the coffin out. They brought the flowers from the funeral. And so I guess they were there for people to grab some flowers. And as the casket is being lowered into the ground, that they would throw the flowers in. But they were tearing like animals at the flowers, like grabbing them and tearing them. And it was really, really weird. And so we get through that part, and he's buried now. So we go back to the church for the repast, and we're sitting on one side of the basement, and his family is sitting on the other side. So I can see the other people, and they're mean mugging, and they making faces, and they ready to set it off. And I'm just sitting there like, okay, whenever you're ready. So finally, we get that over with. And it's a few days later, and I'm trying to get his truck back, and they wanted me to pay. And they were like, well, the chief is the only one that can release it. And some kind of way, my rapport with the chief became null and void. And he's talking to me crazy. And he's telling me, you're going to have to pay. And I don't care. You worked in my town and this, that, and the other. So I'm like, what the hell is going on? So I go get the truck. I have somebody drive me to go pick up the truck. I pay. I get the truck home. I pull in the garage, and the spirits say, go through the truck. Tony had a kicker box connected to the sound system, and it was in the back of the truck. And I find this pillow with blood stains on it. So I take that out of the truck, and I'm moving the speaker around, and the woofer falls out. So I reach into the speaker and I'm pulling out these pamphlets. It's pamphlets for bulletproof vests, uh, attack gear, weaponry. Like, he was ready to go to war to take me out. It was like the devil had control over him to come to take me out. And I find out that that day he was sitting in front of the house because he was going to kill me. And that's why the spirit told me to keep driving. And that's why his mother called to say, because she was in on the plan, you're not the only one with a gun. And he literally was preparing to go to war with me because of his mother, because he wasn't in his right mind, because he wasn't healed. And I finally got the conversation, and the rumors died down. His friends shied away from me because they believed his mom, and they were his friends, so it really wasn't any consequence to me. But it's interesting to see that people would be willing to believe the worst and not even question whether it was true or not. So I just carried on with my life. I stayed working even harder. Um, Oddly enough, where our undercover office was where my grandmother was buried. I could look out of our office window and see her plot. And I had Tony buried in the vicinity of, in the same area. They were next to each other, my grandmother and then my grandfather ultimately was in the same area. And it's always interesting to see the plan unfold, what God has in store. But I'm grateful and I'm thankful for everything that I have experienced that has built me and made me for the elevation that God has purposed for me.